I don't remember the exact day it happened. Not the number on the calendar, because days like that don't feel like dates. They feel like turning points you only understand after they've passed. What I remember is the sensation of the city slowing down, like the world briefly paused to let someone else step forward. That morning, I went to the same small CAF near my workplace. It wasn't fancy. The chairs were slightly crooked. The door had a squeak that sounded like a warning. If you enter, be ready, something might change. The barista, Marta, always treated me like a familiar story. Not in a dramatic way, just in the simple way people do when they've seen you often enough to recognize the routine in your face. Sometimes she even poured my coffee before I finished standing up from my chair, like she could read the rhythm of my mornings. I got my usual order without thinking. 1 cup. Black. No sugar. No extra questions. The coffee was always the same, dark and strong, with that faint caramel bitterness that stayed on your tongue for a few seconds longer than you expected. It tasted like stability. Like the day hadn't started yet, but it already knew how to end. I sat by the window. I did what I always did. I checked messages. I answered one quick email. I scrolled for a while, just to pretend I was busy enough that my thoughts couldn't catch up with me. Then I heard a voice. "Excuse me, can I?" It wasn't loud. It wasn't confident. It was the kind of voice you hear from people who are asking permission not only to enter a place, but permission to exist inside it without being a burden. I looked up. Near the entrance stood a woman in her early 40s. She held a small box in both hands, like it was fragile, like it might break if she breathed too hard. Her coat was a bit wrinkled, and her hair looked as if she hadn't fully decided whether she had the energy to look nice. Her eyes were tired. Not the I slept badly kind of tired. The deeper kind. The kind that comes from carrying something for too long. "I'm sorry," she continued, taking a small step forward. "I think I got lost. I had a ticket, but I don't have it anymore. And maybe I'm late." She swallowed, like she was trying to push the next sentence through her throat without hurting herself. Marta was behind the counter. I saw her look up, and I recognized that look. She wasn't doing customer service. She was doing something else. She was listening. "Yes," Marta said gently. "Coffee is here. Names are here, too. Don't worry." The woman blinked, clearly surprised that anyone spoke to her like that. "What's your name?" Marta asked. The woman hesitated, as if the answer might be wrong. "Olga," she said finally. "Hola." Marta nodded and turned her attention back to the machine. She didn't ask Olga a bunch of questions. She didn't say, "That's not possible," or "Please wait outside." She just did what needed to be done, quietly. A moment later, Olga received a fresh coffee and a small plate. Not a big gesture. Just the right one. A couple of minutes passed. At first, Olga didn't know where to look. She looked at the floor. Then at her box. Then at the window, as if she might see a road that would lead her back in time. Finally, she sat down. And that's when I made a choice I didn't even plan. I watched her hands, how they gripped the box as if she feared someone would steal it, or worse, drop it. And I thought. She didn't come here for coffee. She came here because she had nowhere else to put her hope. And suddenly I couldn't stay in my usual routine, pretending I was just a customer at a CAF. I took a breath. "Sorry," I said, stepping closer to her table. "Can I ask, do you have someone you're meeting?" Olga looked up. Her face tightened, and her eyes shone with that careful sadness people hide when they don't want pity. "I was supposed to meet my sister," she answered quietly. "She promised she'd come today. But she couldn't." She stared at the coffee like it might explain things. "I didn't know what to do with this," she added, holding up the box. "It's food. She made it with her own hands. She said she'd bring it to me, she said it would feel like we weren't falling behind. The words sounded normal, but the meaning was not. There are some heartbreaks that don't announce themselves with shouting. They arrive like this, quietly, between appointments that never happen. I didn't want to throw it away, Olga continued. And I was scared if I left it somewhere it would get ruined. Or someone would take it. Or I'd look stupid. I didn't know what to say. Not because I was at a loss for words. Because the truth was too soft to handle. Finally, I managed a gentle smile. Can I buy you another coffee? I asked. And you can wait here until you feel ready. You don't have to run. Olga's eyebrows lifted. It's kind of you, she said, as if she didn't want to accept kindness too quickly, like it might turn into disappointment later. Then she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. I didn't feel heroic. I didn't feel special. I just felt like, for once, my morning could do something besides keep me distracted. Marta brought a couple of extra napkins and stepped away without making it dramatic. It felt like she was giving Olga space, not attention. Like she understood that sometimes you don't need advice. You need room. We talked for a while. Not long. Just enough. Long enough for Olga to stop holding her breath. Short enough that she didn't have to relive everything. She told me small things, her sister's habits, the food she liked, the way she always added a little extra sauce because she believed it helped people breathe easier. Olga's voice grew steadier when she talked about those details. But every time the conversation drifted toward the reason her sister didn't come, her words became thinner. Like light passing through dirty glass. At some point, I checked the time. It had gone faster than I expected. I always forget how time behaves when you're actually present. Olga stood up and glanced toward the entrance, then toward the window, then back at her box. She looked like she was listening, not to the CAF, but to the invisible road of what should have happened. Then she opened the box carefully. Inside were portions of food wrapped and labeled. It was clearly prepared with care. She took out one container and held it for a second before speaking. This was for her, she said, almost to herself. I made it, or rather, she helped me make it. She was the one who cooked most of it. And she wanted me to eat it. But then I thought maybe I should bring it to her, too. Because she's tired lately. I felt something tight in my throat. Because I realized she had not only prepared food. She had prepared love. And love, real love, doesn't disappear just because a meeting fails. It changes shape. It finds another form to live in. I said something simple, because sometimes simple is the only honest thing. It won't be wasted, I told her. Not if you keep carrying it like this. Not if you're here. Olga let out a shaky laugh. You make it sound so easy, she replied. But I could tell she was grateful. Not for words. For the fact that someone didn't treat her grief like a problem to fix. Then it happened. Not like a movie. Not like music swelling. Just the ordinary sound of the CAF door opening. A man entered. He looked like he belonged in a world that runs behind the scenes, quietly moving pieces that other people can't see. He greeted Marta respectfully, then walked toward Olga. He didn't ask questions. He just said her name and then said something that made the air feel heavier. I saw you here, he told Olga. She couldn't come. But she asked me to tell you that she's thinking of you. Olga froze. Her face changed in a way that I can't properly describe. It wasn't relief. It wasn't happiness. It was the sudden arrival of a feeling that had been missing, like a song you forgot you loved until it started playing again. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at her box like it was suddenly too small for what she was receiving. Finally she spoke, and her voice was barely above a whisper. I thought I was just bringing dinner. I didn't realize it mattered like this. The man shook his head. No, he said. You didn't bring dinner. You brought her peace. People call it different things, but it's the same. Peace is food, too. I didn't know what else to do, so I looked away for a moment, because I didn't want to turn her private moment into something performative. Marta returned and quietly placed an extra plate on the table. Not demanding. Not asking permission. Just offering. When people are hurting, the best kindness is often invisible. It doesn't insist on being recognized. It simply stays. Olga sat down and breathed, slowly, like someone learning how to breathe again after a long time underwater. When the man left, Olga didn't cry immediately. She just sat there with her hands still on the box. Then she looked at me. Do you know what's strange? She said. What? I thought I was late, she answered. But maybe it's not about timing. Maybe it's about finding the right person when you're carrying something heavy. I nodded, because I understood exactly what she meant, although I couldn't explain it as cleanly. That day, I walked out of the CAF feeling lighter. Not because my life suddenly became perfect, but because something in me shifted. I realized that we all live with invisible schedules, deadlines for calls we never made, apologies we never offered, help we keep postponing because we tell ourselves we'll do it when we have time. And time doesn't always wait for our promises. It waits for our courage. Later, I asked Marta what happened to the coffee that morning, why she had expected Olga to show up even when the sister didn't. Marta smiled in that calm way she had. The coffee wasn't for her, she said. Someone ordered it yesterday and never came back. I kept it warm until the moment it would do good. I thought maybe it would end up here. I stared at her, confused. Then she shrugged gently. Life doesn't like empty spaces, she added. It fills them. With people. With chances. Sometimes with something as small as a cup of coffee that wasn't supposed to matter. I went to work after that. I did my tasks. I answered messages. But I couldn't go back to being only a spectator in my own life. Because once you see how one small act can change a person's day, it becomes harder to ignore the moments that are asking for you. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. A person who looks like they're carrying grief in a box. A door that squeaks because someone needs you to open it. A moment that feels ordinary until you decide to make it kind. So I started doing something. Whenever I noticed someone who seemed like they needed one extra, human thing, I offered it. Not as a performance. Not to feel better about myself. Just because I didn't want to miss the chance. And sometimes I didn't even offer money. Sometimes it was simply sitting with someone for 5 minutes. Sometimes it was holding a door. Sometimes it was waiting without rushing them. Because the truth is, the world doesn't run only on big events. It runs on small rescues. That's what the coffee that wasn't for her is really about. Not the drink. The empty space it filled. The moment it created. And the way life, even when it hurts, still knows how to bring people back to each other.